History loves to brag about geniuses like Alexander the Great or Napoleon. But let's be honest, it also gave us some royal idiots who make you wonder how they remembered to breathe. From emperors who crowned their horses to kings who thought they were literally made of glass. These guys make modern politicians look like Einstein. And before we dive in, do me a favor. Smash that subscribe button and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. Imagine your teacher explaining this madness in your history class. 1. Caligula, the Roman emperor who loved his horse more than his people. And no, that's not a metaphor. He actually made his horse, Incitatus, a senator. He even built the horse a marble stable with an ivory manger. Imagine being a hard-working Roman senator and realizing your colleague is a neighing stallion. Democracy? More like de horse assi. 2. Charles VI of France, who firmly believed his body was made of glass. Yup, the king thought he would shatter into pieces if someone touched him too roughly. He wore reinforced clothing and banned anyone from getting too close. Imagine being his bodyguard. Protect the king. But careful, don't tap him. He might break like a wine glass at a wedding. Royal fragility at its finest. 3. George IV of England could have been remembered as a decent king if he hadn't blown his kingdom's money on shoes, wigs, and diamonds. This guy once ordered an entire suit made of silk covered in jewels. It weighed so much he could barely stand. Picture your rent money going straight into funding your ruler's glittery cosplay collection. Britain didn't need enemies. George's fashion sense was already destroying the empire. 4. Zhao Gao of China takes stupidity to new levels. He once brought a deer into court, pointed at it, and said, "Behold, a fine horse." When officials hesitated, he punished the ones who disagreed. It was basically the first corporate team-building exercise. Lie to keep your job. Imagine your boss showing you a stapler and saying, "Nice Ferrari, right?" That's the kind of management style Zhao Gao perfected. 5. Ludwig II of Bavaria, who decided ruling wasn't fun. He'd rather build castles that looked like Disneyland on steroids. He spent so much money on palaces and fake medieval fantasies that Bavaria nearly went bankrupt. His ministers eventually declared him insane, but honestly, the guy just wanted to live in a Pinterest board. Too bad taxpayers had to foot the bill for his magical kingdom. 6. Idi Amin of Uganda, a man who gave himself more titles than any comic book villain. He crowned himself conqueror of the British Empire, King of Scotland, and even Lord of all the beasts of the earth. The only problem? He barely knew how to run his own country. Imagine a guy who can't pay for bread, but declares himself ruler of the galaxy. That was Idi Amin, history's ultimate clown in uniform. 7. King Farouk of Egypt, also known as the Pickpocket King. He was so obsessed with stealing things that he swiped watches, wallets, and even Winston Churchill's pocket watch during a dinner. A king, stealing like a street thief. His people were starving, but he was out there collecting other people's toys like a spoiled child at recess. 8. Christian VII of Denmark, a king who preferred his own company. And by that I mean, he was completely addicted to self-pleasure. He ignored meetings, skipped councils, and spent his time locked away with his favorite hobby. Imagine being an advisor trying to get his attention while the king says, "Not now, I'm busy." Denmark had a king who literally ruled from his bedroom. 9. Emperor Norton of the United States, well, self-proclaimed. He woke up one day in San Francisco and declared himself Emperor of America. And the funniest part? People actually went along with it. He printed his own money, which local businesses accepted as real. He may have been crazy, but he lived rent-free as America's only emperor. Honestly, he might have been smarter than the rest. 10. Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, the man who proved that ignoring your people is the fastest way to lose everything. His people begged for reform, but Nicholas just hosted balls, spent fortunes, and pretended everything was fine. Then came the revolution, and he lost not just his crown, but his entire empire. It turns out, if you pretend problems don't exist, the problems will pretend you don't exist either. 11. Emperor Bokassa I of the Central African Empire, the man who threw himself the world's most expensive party. He spent 1/3 of his country's budget on a single coronation. Golden thrones, diamond crowns, and imported champagne. Meanwhile, his people couldn't afford food. Imagine your country's taxes going straight into a royal birthday bash. Bokassa didn't just rule, he partied his nation into bankruptcy. 12. King John of England, also known as John Lackland, because he literally lost almost everything. He managed to give away huge territories, angered the nobles, and even got himself excommunicated by the Pope. By the end, no one liked him. Not the church, not his people, not even his own family. He's the only English king remembered mostly for being a total failure. 13. Charles II of Spain, a tragic case of royal inbreeding gone wrong. Generations of cousins marrying cousins led to a king so weak he could barely chew food or speak properly. Advisors described him as looking like a walking corpse. He couldn't rule, couldn't produce heirs, and his death ended his dynasty. Sometimes royal family trees really are too short. 14. Nero of Rome, the emperor who thought he was a rock star. He forced his citizens to attend his endless performances, played the lyre while Rome literally burned, and executed anyone who criticized his talent. Imagine being trapped in a concert that never ends, with no escape, and the tickets cost your life savings. Nero wasn't just a bad ruler, he was history's worst open mic act. 15. Cambyses II of Persia, a man who thought family reunions were overrated. He murdered his brother, married his sister, and went on drunken rampages that made his own soldiers afraid of him. He once stabbed a sacred bull just to prove a point. The Persians wanted a strong leader. Instead, they got a violent soap opera with way too much drama. 16. Edward II of England, a king who let love blind him from ruling. He ignored his kingdom, spent fortunes on his favorites, and angered the nobles so badly they eventually overthrew him. In the end, Edward's reign wasn't remembered for glory, it was remembered for disaster. Sometimes the crown isn't the heaviest burden, it's bad judgment. 17. Piero the Unfortunate of Florence, and the name really says it all. When invaders marched toward the city, Piero handed over all of Florence's defenses without a fight. He surrendered so easily, the people nicknamed him the Unfortunate, which is medieval speak for the biggest coward in town. Imagine your city being gifted to enemies because your leader just panicked. 18. King Zog I of Albania, famous for two things: chain smoking 200 cigarettes a day and surviving multiple assassination attempts. He was so paranoid he even returned fire during one attempt, in the middle of an opera house. Picture a king pulling out a pistol while sitting in the theater balcony. Albania didn't get Shakespeare, it got a royal action movie. 19. Emperor Valentinian II, who was basically a teenager puppet placed on the throne. He had the title of emperor, but zero power. Advisors controlled everything while he sat there looking confused. It was like giving a kid the steering wheel of a car, while the adults secretly controlled the brakes. Valentinian wasn't ruling Rome, he was babysitting it. 20. Louis XVI of France, the man who partied while his people starved. Instead of fixing the food crisis, he built fancy palaces, threw banquets, and acted like nothing was wrong. The people eventually decided they'd had enough and introduced him to the guillotine. His reign was proof that when you ignore reality long enough, reality has a sharp way of catching up. And there you have it. 20 kings and emperors who proved that having a crown doesn't mean having a brain. Some wasted fortunes, some surrendered whole kingdoms, and others just lived in a fantasy world of their own making. Honestly, I'm just glad none of them are running my city. Speaking of cities, drop yours in the comments. Let's see where the smartest audience in the world is tuning in from. And don't forget to subscribe, because history has plenty more fools for us to laugh at together. After all, if we don't learn from their mistakes, we might just end up repeating them.